My name is Anastasia, and I've been working in the design industry for over 8.5 years. It just so happened that I've mastered many skills over these 8 years. I've worked as a graphic designer, brand designer, communication designer, visual designer, digital designer, and UX UI designer. Anyway, I won't go into why that happened. Instead, I'll tell you what it's like to be the only designer in a company, how to help the business, how to help the team, and most importantly, how to help yourself. To not burn out, to try to keep up, to avoid burnout, and basically to enjoy the design process. So let's start with the agenda, what's actually happening in the design industry right now. I often check LinkedIn to see what's going on. And just recently, Carl Rivera, who is the design director, head of design at Shopify, made several statements about how they've completely removed the titles UX, UI, and graphic designer from their companies altogether. So there are no other designers or narrow specialists anymore, just designers. And similar statements were made by Airbnb and Notion. Actually, it created quite a buzz. You can Google it and read more. A lot has been written about it. What does this actually mean? That these days, narrow specialists are practically going extinct. The market no longer needs them. Because in this day and age, a designer essentially must be able to do everything. Why did this happen? Because artificial intelligence has entered our world and allowed designers to use such a broad range of capabilities. And it's allowed them to complete their tasks much faster. Specifically, this has affected UX designers the most. And now we're going to have a little 5-minute hate session. This is roughly how UX designers used to look at all the other designers in the world. And why is that? Because they were making user interfaces while painting buttons. Well, some girls would just paint those buttons. And it so happened that UI designers and other designers, one way or another, they had to master UX, to do it, to somehow evolve in general. And during this time, UX stopped being some kind of sacred knowledge. Now everyone knows what UX is, right? And basically, these guys are no longer the kings of the profession. They're now in a situation where they need to create beautiful interfaces, but they can't. So they have to learn how. And let's take a closer look, looking at what is happening right now. Testing, 1, 2, 3. And we can conclude that design is indeed evolving at this very moment. The winners will be those who master these multiple skills, who can adapt to these changes, use all the tools that today's world offers, and basically stay on the wave of change. Let's examine the anatomy of designers in general. Actually, as it turns out, there are many more of them. It's not just these 3, there are quite a lot. There are specialists, whom I've already mentioned, and then there are T-shapes, which we'll focus on. What exactly are T-shapes? These are people who have one main core specialization, but they also have additional sub-specializations that they can switch to if needed. And then there are X-shapes, or unicorn designers. This is somewhat like what you might call an advanced T-shape, with truly extensive and comprehensive knowledge, much like a design director who has a broad and strategic impact on the product, regularly mentors and supports other designers, and is able to influence important stakeholder decisions. Let's look at the anatomy of a T-shape. For example, let's say this is me. Suppose I have a strong specialization in UI. I also know branding, UX, motion, and front-end, but that's not mandatory. Some people might have 3D instead of motion, something else instead of front-end, or communication design instead of branding, or maybe they're great at logos. What does this model allow? It lets you shift that vertical bar to other areas. And in a very short time, you can achieve mastery in that new skill. We already have the base, the foundation, so we can quickly pivot to a different direction. This means we can adapt very quickly and evolve with market changes. Now, just imagine for a moment that a talented and creative designer like this joins a company, and in this company, they are expected to be the only designer on the entire team. They have to take on a wide variety of different tasks, all by themselves, and handle each one using their broad range of various skills and abilities. And what happens then, do you think? Well, usually it looks something like this. I even have a sticker like this on my laptop, if you've noticed. So the designer sits there, eyes wide, thinking, everything is fine, even if everything's on fire and notifications are piling up. I need to optimize everything that's happening and figure out how to survive. There are actually just a few truly universal tips on how to survive, adapt, and maybe even turn the situation to your advantage. There really aren't many of these, so I promise I won't bore you for too long. First of all, you need to think big and design ahead. Sometimes we get a recurring task that we keep pushing away because we don't like it. But often the issue isn't the small task itself, but a trigger hidden far behind it. Instead of just doing the task, you should follow the chain, find the root cause, and solve that. That way we can resolve multiple issues at once. We'll actually look at this more broadly because there's a real case from Navix I'll share with you today. Second, and this is more about hard skills. That means that templates and patterns are your superpower. Anything that can be reused should be reused. Well, it's best to do it wisely so that, well, you and your colleagues know it's a template, but everyone who sees your, I don't know, design layouts, they wouldn't know it's a template, right? This saves your time really well and allows you to deliver results very quickly. At the same time, you free up a lot of time for some of your main tasks. And the next thing is to be your own manager and ensure transparency. Well, I don't know, at Clever, we don't have a project manager, but we have, for example, once a week, we have a design meeting where the designer, along with the managers, distributes the tasks. That is, the designer distributes these tasks together. He leads this meeting. This way, we ensure transparency, everyone knows who's doing what, and the designer can set realistic deadlines and say, I can do this now, I can do that later. And all the managers, I don't know, product owners, anyone interested can come in and generally understand what's going on around them. So you often need to take responsibility, be proactive, and be your own manager. And there are, of course, different ways. Some people use Notion. I write notes. Everyone has their own. The next thing is to give to artificial intelligence. Some things that you either don't like or that, again, can be reused, or in general, try to hand them over to AI. We have, for example, a set of icons that I made in Adobe Illustrator. Then I put it into AI, so it was already drawn like that. I made it in 3D, rotated it, and now this template, these icons, they live at exhibitions in Mexico, at exhibitions in Colombia, on LinkedIn covers. So it's a large set that was multiplied using AI. It looks pretty good, and in principle I like it, but it's already living out its time. I need to come up with something else. The next thing is to be outside the brief. Well, you'll agree, if every time we did the design exactly as written in the specs, it would be terrible. Well, it would be ugly. And every time someone tells me, we need to write a brief so that someone on the side does it exactly according to the brief, guys, well, it's impossible. First of all, there should always be something of your own, and you should bring something of your own. And it happens that a spec comes in, and you realize that with the initial data you have, you just won't be able to do it. You won't be able to make it look good. So it makes sense to spend a reasonable amount of time on an attempt, yes, and offer your own solution, which will be much better and more beneficial. I haven't yet met a product owner or a stakeholder who would say, no, do it by the specs, this solution of yours is bad. Usually everyone agrees and says, cool, let's do it, or like, let's do it in the next iteration. And the third rule is to feed your visual library while doing it very smartly. There are a bunch of services like, I don't know, Pinterest, Behance, Dribbble. In short, we all know them. And for myself, I have accounts everywhere. And I realized one thing, that this doesn't allow me to be flexible. I have a huge library there. In that folder, I go in, I get lost. And what I do is I've set up several Miro boards and even Figma. I copy images there and put a sticker and write specifically why I'm using this thing and what I want to use it for later on. This way I do some kind of analysis and I don't have to try and remember why. So I've already looked at the image. I have a note. I can immediately go back quickly, go and do what I need. And let's give one more global piece of advice. It's called, well, all the guys from Navix who talk to me know this advice of mine. It's called, if you can't beat them, lead them. For example, there's some task that keeps coming back constantly and everyone's fed up with it. Seriously, we can't beat it. You keep bouncing it around. You send it, they don't approve it. You send it, they don't approve it. What do I suggest doing? And if the designer on the team also says, God, what is this? I can't do this anymore. Well, basically, nobody needs that. You have to try to love this task, take the client side, somehow do some global, I don't know, adoption and understand like why. And then you suddenly start to love it from the client side and tell your colleagues, let's make it bolder, even bolder font, and let's blur this out too. And you see the point in it, you stop being annoyed, you actually like it. And sometimes you really get very cool layouts, but the most important thing is that everyone around is happy. The team is happy, the designer is happy, the stakeholder who ordered it is also happy. Well, you get it, right? Today we're mostly talking about mindset. Let's look at a real case that I was talking about. And I thought for a long time what to call it and decided to call it what I actually called it. It's called Covers Are Eating Up Our Time. These are our covers that we used to make for social media, for LinkedIn, for the blog. And creating such a cover could take a very long time. And I'll tell you why. Suppose you open an email, you get a task. Basically, we came up with this spec, we have a new feature coming out, and we need a fleet of cars, and on it, a fence from our IT logic that glows. Or like we want some Kamaz in a cutaway view, and there's a sensor in it, and the driver is also using our app. And all this and you realize, come on, guys, well, it's just impossible to do. I see, yes, I see you, those who are smiling, who sent me these tasks. And in general, it was decided to end this because it was impossible to live like that anymore. And we start researching this task from all sides and try to love it, to understand, well, what's behind this task? Why is it like this? And we start our little research. We start not only from the design side, we start from the manager's side and ask the managers what problems they have. And it turns out coming up with covers is also hard for them, and they don't want to invent them either, but for some reason they have to. So I start doing a little bit of research and start writing down what's going on. So we have problems with setting the technical specifications. We have a lot of dependency on the designer, say everything is ready, the feature is ready, everything is ready, and we're waiting for the designer to give birth to this cover. In short, dependency on the designer. Next, we had a problem with the translations of these covers because there were several languages, the managers did it themselves, and it came out crooked and ugly. Then we looked further, and it turned out that we had problems with visual hierarchy. All our covers are bright, and finding a product update among them is simply impossible because everything is bright, everything is beautiful. There, as you can see, I praise myself, right? Next, we had a problem with the website, meaning our headings were duplicated, and it was like you look and we have a heading on the image and a heading on the site. And this also led us to cognitive overload because we had no limits on the number of characters. We had this clever blur in the blog that darkened the text, and authors were like, why don't I make it 4 lines long and cram everything I can in there? And in short, the angry designer decided that enough was enough. It can't go on like this anymore. And so out of a small task, a new visual strategy was born, and we also updated the blog on top of that. Now I'll show you what we've achieved, in part. Basically, we made a template in Canva with a set of pre-made icons and wrote rules on how to use it. If you need a new icon, please, you're welcome to the Google form, fill it out, and we'll add it. And so we killed the first bird, we allowed managers to avoid the designer altogether and independently post content. Please, if you want to post to the blog, even 15 items a day, please use the rules, use the template. And we also updated the blog design, but we did it very smartly. We're not just showing one picture. We really wanted to show the scale, and we showed it right away on the new blog design. And we immediately introduced new rules with headings, with dark themes, with the fact that on images we no longer use any text at all, and so on. This allowed us to save on translation. Of course, we still have some inconsistency. Yes, you see, someone kind wrote across the entire length here. But we're fighting it. And basically, we don't suffer from these covers anymore. We have some super cases that we want to highlight. We highlight them. We need a feature update. We highlight it. Other cases or things we just need to write while it's still hot, while it's relevant. We post using these kinds of templates. Oh, and we also develop templates for devices as well. Anyway, we have many templates and people use them, and I'm basically happy because it's freed up a lot of time. I hope my colleagues are happy too. What's the point of all this? Where am I leading you? To a, very global conclusion. Change in design is normal. It's impossible to reach point B. If we want to reach point B in design, then we shouldn't work in design because the process never ends. And for us, the process is everything. We have to love it. And it's very important to stay flexible. What do I mean by being flexible? There are some designers, and I used to be like that too. We have an idea, we've grabbed it, and we're holding on to it. If someone comes and asks for edits, we're like, no, you're hurting my feelings. I'm not doing this anymore. And you need to be able to accept others' ideas, give away your own, and transform them into something else entirely. And we're constantly dealing with feedback. I mean, every day a designer opens up and someone will definitely write about their design. And it's important to stay flexible, be confident in yourself and your decisions, think big and work smart. Working smart means, as you've gathered, making templates. Well, that's basically it. If you have any questions, feel free to ask.